Welcome to episode 13 of Just Saying. We're coming to the end of the year. This is the last full work week of the year. Pretty much everything's already shutting down. And Jamal, congratulations. You were indeed first. So good going. And Ashy Page is here. Pyraj is here. Hello, Pyraj. We're going to be having a lot to talk about very, very soon. Tubbsy's here as well. Hello and welcome. Bromeo, or Broms as I've decided to start calling him, is sandwiched between two 16-hour night shifts. So he asked if he could sleep through this one. He's not here, but Falcon is here. And then our guest panelist is in the house, Skill Steel himself.
Hello there. No, thank you for having me. It was quite a surprise when you messaged me, and obviously I'm not going to miss this opportunity. So thank you for having me on here.
It's always a pleasure. Someone who I consider to have a little bit of a level head and I think has a good view of things, and I think we might differ on a few things in terms of opinions, but I feel like you, having come from the pro scene, have important insight to give someone like me who's never played competitively, but has lots of hopes and dreams. So hopefully you can temper my enthusiasm in some places, counter me in others, and I can challenge you on things. So I'm very pleased to have you here. And Falcon, having spent 5 days or so in the sweltering heat of Joburg, back in Cape Town, you must have been sad to leave.
A gray beard, you need to get in there.
You would like for me to say that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
You'd never know how much you appreciate where you do stay until you go to Joburg.
Okay, fair enough. You know what? I get that. There's nothing pretty here, but it is where we make economically we keep the country grinding on its wheels, as limping along as it is right now.
No, Joburg is, I'm sure it's a great place, but that's a business place. Here, we like to chill. We like the weather where it's not killing me every day. I'm not too scared to go out in the sun. So it's like, but other than that, I had a really good time up there.
Right, there's been a complaint that your mic is soft, so I've jacked you up a little bit. Hopefully it's better in chat. Do let us know. All right, Skill Steel, I think we have to start in the obvious place, and the obvious place is, are you fully retired?
So here's the thing, right? So recently, so just to jump a little off track for a moment. So recently, I don't know if you guys also saw Garrett G decided finally he's also now stepped away, along with other notable players like Arsenal, AJ,
yes,
players from NA, legends of the scene. They also decided to step away. And what was very funny for me to see was Garrett G, I think after like a week after he retired, he signed up with Squishy and them to do the next 12th season. So it kind of got my train of thought running. What does it actually mean to be retired? So in professional sports world, retiring from rugby or football, you step away completely from the sport, playing it, and then you go into coaching or assisting or whatever else, but you're not actively playing the sport. But for the world of esport, what does it mean to retire? When I retired, Greybeard graciously made that whole video of me and people telling me how much I meant in the scene, and that was very heartwarming. Just for me to jump back into the scene the next season and kind of making it feel like all that was for nothing, which it really, really wasn't. And that's what got me thinking, does retiring from Rocket League mean I have to completely step away from the game? Does it mean I can still just play it for me, jump into seasons with whoever wants to play with a very, very old person, and then just compete just for the hell of it? So to say I'm fully retired, I don't think you can put that fully on my name, but to say that I'm not actively pursuing Rocket League as a career anymore, as a professional, I think that is true. but
I-
I will still be playing the game, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense, and I'm thrilled by that. And I think there is a difference. And you mentioned Garrett G and Squishy, who've both retired. Now they're in a team together. But I think that's, when you're representing G2 or Cloud9 or NRG, there's a certain expectation, responsibility, and pressure that comes with that. I think now Squishy and Garrett G are just going to have a blast and go out there, do as best they can. But there isn't the weight of that weight of expectation, and you can get back to having fun in the game, because skill, there's got to be a huge difference between, gosh, I love playing Rocket League, and then, okay, Rocket League is my job. I mean, there's got to be a massive difference in that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, Garrett and them, they partially have a brand to build. They have content that they need to grind out. So I don't have that. For me, it's just purely I just play the game just because. But for them, I think retiring, they have other avenues they can explore. Like Garrett, especially, they have a huge brand and content base that they can build off of. AJ, I think, does the same. So yeah, I think retirement in the esport world, just in general, doesn't mean you just completely step away, never to be seen again. And I think that's nice, though. I think that's good.
Well, I will say it's always been part of my agenda to kind of rope you in one way or another. And I've gotten you on the podcast a couple of times, and I would like to see you doing something. I just think you bring something to the scene, and I would like to do what I can to make sure that you don't slip through the fingers and disappear into the woods.
Just to add to that, so the funny thing is I spoke to CPZ a very long time ago when I first got onto the team. They labeled me as the guy who thought he could, or something like that. Like just to say, I was always the guy that thought he could. He was way better than he actually was.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny is I've been playing a lot of ranked, and I've kind of preparing for next season, doing some trials with teams and all that. And it feels like I can still keep up in a way.
Yeah.
And the whole goal for me is to, and I've been carrying this since I joined up with Low and them with Reformed, when I started hitting the old age in Rocket League of a full 26, I think, 28 now. So I've been carrying this whole goal with me to kind of show that you can still do it whenever. I know the Counter-Strike guys and all them, they reach ages of like 33 and 34.
Yes.
And Rocket League has always carried the mantle of you cannot do it after you're 23, or you're not going to be actively doing it up until 24. And I want to change that. I want to see how far I can go, how high I can keep up with these guys. I think I can still do it in SSA. I think I can still keep up with SSA, but once you start going overseas, then it starts hitting you.
I do think that there's going to be a meta coming which will favor the older player, the ones who've been around a long time and have a deep knowledge of the game. I think there is going to be a place, because technically the skill ceiling keeps getting higher and higher, but there is going to be room for someone like yourself or a Garrett or Squishy or whatever to be a bit more of a mastermind in a team, and with that deep understanding. And that's my feeling, and I hope it does come to pass. So skill steal as a goal, I wish you luck in that, and I'm thrilled that you're still playing, that you're still competing, that you're still out there. I think that's fantastic. There is a question from chat from Tubbsy, who wants to know if you would do any coaching.
I think personally for me, I don't think coaching would work out. Coaching takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of time. And you kind of need backing from an org if you want to do coaching full time, because obviously you need to find a way to justify all that effort and all that work. And I cannot do it with a full time job. It just takes too much time, like I said. I would enjoy it. I wouldn't say I'm completely shying away from it, but currently with work situation, all that, I don't think coaching is where I'm at. And also, like I said, my mentality is still around playing myself. So once that disappears and I actually have the opportunity and I find the right team, then sure, coaching isn't completely off the table.
Okay. We have a number of things we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to get things kicked off after. So the answer to the question you see at the top of the screen: Skill Steel retired? Not really. Still around, still actively a part of the scene, for which we are all very, very grateful. Then next up, we just had this weekend. We had a tournament, a Mythic After Party tournament. And what that was is, I think it was October sometime, September, October, ACGL had a competition between Fortnite, Call of Duty, Rainbow Six, and Rocket League. And we all had to make points by playing the game and doing all sorts of things. And a lot of people grinded hard. The prize for winning that was a 20,000 Rand tournament by ACGL. And a lot of people put in a lot of work, including my first and I promise you my only 12-hour stream. And we came really, really close. We gave Call of Duty a run for their money. We lost ultimately, but we had a benefactor who came in and said he would sponsor a 10,000 Rand tournament to reward the people who grinded that tournament. So we took everyone who had played 50 games or more and invited them to a tournament. Of the 32 people that had 50 or more games, 24 accepted the invitation, and it was done as a mix-up. And I'm gonna get to the results of it, but I want to talk about the person who sponsored that, because not only did he sponsor the Mythic After Party, the prize pool for it, we also had a 1v1 tournament, the Greybeard Invitational, back in, I'm wanting to say August, or maybe earlier. Some time ago, there was a 1v1 tournament that had an 8,000 Rand prize pool. It was administered by ACGL, and in the end, they put in another 2,000 Rand. But it was, the impetus was from the same sponsor, Bahi. And I've asked Bahi to come in and chat with us. Bahi, hello, good to have you here.
Hello, good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So as you can tell from his accent immediately, not a local. He's a bit of a legend out in the Austrian scene, and got in touch with me some months ago and said, hey, he wants to sort of get involved with SSA. How can he help build the community? So Bahi, let's start with, give us the general rundown of who you are, your history in Rocket League, what you have done, what you are doing, and then we'll take on a few things.
So first question: how much time do you have? How far should I go back?
Well, you know what? I'll gently encourage you if I feel like you're taking a little long.
Okay, got it. I'll keep an eye out for that. No, my name is Bahi. I am 30 years old. As I was introduced, not a local. I am from Austria, in the middle of Europe. Been involved with Rocket League ever since it was released on the Nintendo Switch. So I started there. I know, please don't hate me for it. Sorry. But my way into the community. My girlfriend back then introduced me, and she was a Switch player, so that's naturally how I got into it. And then I've started more and more pushing the competitive scene of it. I have a background in fighting games. That's my original competitive background. Did a lot of tournaments, a lot of organizing there once I realized I'm too bad of a player. Same thing happened quite fast in Rocket League 2. Realization hit me quite fast. I'm not going to be making it into any kind of big tournament. So I again switched up and went to the organizing, managing, a bit of coaching as well. And yeah, that's basically how I got my start. And then in Europe, it's like you always start with the organization, and then that organization or your scene drags you into the bigger scene. For me, that's the German-speaking scene. And then I just filled out the spot that I felt comfortable with, which is organizing, helping out other people and other players, other orgs. And yeah, I feel like I've become a bit of a joke of everyone in the DACH scene, the German-speaking scene. Whenever they need something, they just usually message me.
Right. Well, before I get to the next question, I've got to give a big shout out to the Spaniard SSA. The SSA Spaniard Harmonic, who's just raided with a bunch of his peeps. Hello and welcome in. Welcome to Just Saying. We're talking to Bahi from another part of Europe, from Austria. So Bahi, it was the Nitro League you were involved with, right?
Yeah. German-speaking area has always been super, super lucky because they have a huge backbone of the community. So we always had like one of the biggest, I think even globally, one of the biggest community leagues ever. Like Nitro League at its peak was over 2,000 players. was
Jesus.
really, really big, and like a lot of teams, a lot of divisions, 500 teams. It was really crazy.
Wow.
And it had like a time when esport was really, really big and the hype was there, mid of Corona, when everyone was at home, couldn't really do anything else, no touching grass, so to say. So focus was on us, and then it just came crashing down with economy and everything else in general. People moved on, players moved on, people retired, a lot of switch up in the scene happening, and it just came to an end. And then we took it from there and relaunched it. Not just rebranded, but shut it down and made something completely new. And yeah, we are back with a new project. It's called Rival Rush. It's again the biggest league in most likely Europe again. We're
Wow.
having right now 800, 900 players with over 300 or 228 teams that are actively participating. We are officially sponsored by Epic, supported by Epic as well. We got
Amazing.
Sean in there. They did like a global article on what the community is doing right now, and had like all the greats of the scene, the legends like Johnny Boy and his stuff. Lola as well was on there, and his community tournaments, all the people, and then us in there as well. It was very crazy to see that happening. And yeah, it's been going great. It's a lot of cool things that are happening in the European scene from a grassroots perspective as well. And I can't spoil it, unfortunately, because I do have signed an NDA, but it's only going to get better from here.
All right. Well, I'm going to come to a question about SSA, but I have to divert for a moment because I see Big Sin is in the chat, the big boss at Limitless. And I don't know if I can be so bold as to just out of the blue say, "Oh, hi, Big Sin, good to see you." So how are we looking for Limitless in the SSA scene next year? I know things were very much up in the air. And we've, of course, loved having you here. We would love your continued participation. But I don't know how high up in the air it still is. So feel free to answer or not as you wish. But I was just keen to shout him out there since he is here. So Bahia, Austria is a very far away from SSA. I mean, you don't even really have, hold on, what did he say? You want to be back, but still no word from Epic about the revenue share program. We've made a Discord with all RSC org reps and we're angry. Okay, so, all right. So it is not yet resolved clearly, which is unfortunate because what are we, like 5 short weeks away from the start of the season. Okay, so now I completely get that, and thanks for sharing. So you could almost understand someone from France being interested in SSA because Reunion Island, which are producing a huge host of Rocket League players, and they are a part of France. So you could understand someone from there getting involved. But how do you find yourself supporting and it's been great support for SSA? How did that all come about for you?
Good question. I feel like I have one issue in my personality, which is I don't know when to stop. And I usually end up with like too many projects and too many interests and too many hobbies. So like I couldn't just stop with one region. Like the other, maybe the difference here as well, Europe is one thing when we talk about it as a region, is not as united as you might think. There's a lot of sub-regions and it's divided by languages.
Okay.
So you might as well, like if I'm from the European region, I might know like 10% of that region based from the people I interact with my language and my localized scene. So I never really, even though I come from Europe, I was never really involved in the European scene as a global or as a whole thing. Yes, you play RCS and you know the top players and do scrims, all that stuff. But as an organizer, as an event person, it's always more on the local scene. And from that perspective, if you compare SSA as a developing, growing scene, even though you're much bigger, you're a whole region, you can make a lot of comparisons to like a growing scene, like the German-speaking scene, like the Austrian scene even. So the interest was sparked more from that perspective, seeing what you guys are doing down here, because you are always in a mode of let's get bigger, let's grow, let's act together, unitify ourselves and make something happen. And we are also at that point with the ending of Nitro League, with like a bit of a stop in the economic situation. So I think it was just an interest seeing what you guys are doing down there. And I put you on the spot now, Graber. It makes a lot of sense reaching out to you because you are SSA in Europe. You are the face to the otherwise faceless scene in that sense.
True.
Maybe within top players, it's a bit different. They might know themselves and each other and can reach out. But like for everyone who is like in more on the behind the scenes type of category, it's SSA equals Greybeard, so to say. And also Machtfish. I mean, you know Machtfish. Have the same worried about you, so it just made sense reaching out to you. And I mean, maybe a question for you: how did you feel when I reached out with the words, "I don't want to get involved, but take my money"? How was that for you?
It's not a conversation I've had a lot. But no, it was fantastic because I think you messaged me on Twitter and, basically said, and at that time it was interesting. You were between projects because the Rival Rush wasn't a thing then and might not have been a thing. And you were saying, I really want to help SSA. I'd like to get involved. And I was like, great. Well, we've got RSC. We've got this. We got all sorts of things going on. And you went, yeah, well, look, I don't want to get involved in doing things. But if there's money that is needed for something, absolutely, I'd be keen to support that. And that was fantastic because that is always an issue. But then, that comes with its own responsibility. It's like, okay, what will get the most value for the community for every rand or euro that's put in? And at the time there was the 1v. I've always tried to get more SSA players grinding ones because I think that's a great path to improvement and so on. So that's how we got you involved. It was like, okay, well, let's get some financial incentive into grinding ones. So it was an enormously, it was such a fantastic thing to have as a reach out, So.
Yeah. We even had in the first, I think, 5 minutes a discussion that you don't need a white knight in shining armor saving the region with expertise because you guys have the expertise. You've been doing great stuff. You just need that little push, and that's the easiest job in the world from a financial perspective. Yes. You don't have to do anything and just give someone who knows what to do a bit of help. Amazing. I will do that all day.
And the great thing about SSA is that it is, a euro goes a lot further in SSA than it does in Germany or the Netherlands or the UK. It really does stretch here. So we're enormously grateful for that. So we might as well now. I don't know if you how much of the after party tournament you caught. But I'm going to just quickly run. So the format we chose, because the community challenge was pretty much everyone was just jumping in and playing games. So you had, GC3s and SSL playing with Champ 2s. It was just chaos. It was a lot of fun. So we want, and because of that, the 24 people who were playing in the tournament were with a wide range of rankings. So we wanted to do it in a way that would be as fair as possible. So we did a mix-up tournament. And the whole idea with 24 people, it was 4 groups of 6 people. And everybody in a group got to play with and against everybody else. So the roster changed every game, 5 games per group. And it makes it very challenging because when you're a high-level player, we saw it a few times. You have 2 high-level players playing with 1 low-level players, and it's it must be frustrating and weird because you expect your teammate to be there, they're not. And so it was a bit of chaos, and some big names didn't make it through the first cut. But ultimately, so the 4 groups went down to 2, the 2 down to a final group, and I streamed that. And then this is the... Okay, good. It's not going to work. Oh, this is brilliant. Where's my... Hold on 1 second. I need to just make sure and find out where the hell this is because I've got a whole...
Did you jinx yourself from the beginning?
I did jinx myself because...
So confident statement. I have everything ready.
Everything ready, yes. This is all good. There we go. Okay, so okay, I got it working. I just want to make sure, is that button working? Yes, it is. Okay, so this was how it ended up. So there was a 10,000 Rand prize pool, which Bahi put in. First place was Tristan, and then Gun, Zany, Douglas, Scraffy, Ford Hilux, Vare, Daps, Jeff, Sethi, Peanuts, and Legal Evoxy. So 12 places paid. So 11th and 12th place making 450 Rand. And everybody has already been paid, which I'm enormously proud to say, with the exception of Guns, because he hasn't sent me his bank details. But as soon as he does, he too will be paid. So there you go, Bahi. That's what your euros bought.
I recognize some of the names from the list because my DMs got flooded with a lot of thank yous. So shout out to the people who took the extra time saying thank you for that. No worries. I'm glad and happy to do it. But it's good to see. Like, I've really liked the format and your idea of like really making it rewarding for the people who put in the work and the effort. And if you had a fun format idea and people liked it and it got a bit of a shake-up in the scene, even better.
Yeah. No, and if I go back to the end of last season, not the 24, the before the 2024, when that season ended, while we were waiting for the 2024 season to go, I mean, Skill, you'll remember this. I mean, it was like 6.5 months of nothing.
Yeah.
It was so dry and so, and then we had the chaos of all when we realized the imports were coming, but there was just nothing going on. This off season has been fantastic with the community league, and then also the 1v1, and then now that it's been a very, very busy off season, which is great. And Skill, I don't know how involved you've been with any off season stuff.
Yeah, it comes back to I've retired, eh? So, it's strange because I mean you obviously have the 1v1 open that happened. You have the hoops tournament that's coming up. Then you have the 3v3 one in December. So there's a lot of content to consume and a lot of things to participate in. I myself, I haven't found the flame within me to want to participate in everything. You know, social life, work, everything external. But I've seen a lot of participation from the community. Everyone's been very involved with these off-season tournaments. I think people are enjoying it, or they're finding it nice that there's something to do. Because as you mentioned, back in the day, or very recently, there was like completely nothing for a few months. And if you weren't part of the grind and you weren't used to playing the game every day for nothing, then people weren't doing anything. They weren't improving. They weren't finding teams, trialing. They weren't doing anything. And then at the end, everyone was scouring around trying to find their foot in their place before signups close. And now people have the chance to, within a competitive environment, set themselves up to find the team that they want to play with next season. You have the 1v1. I think 1v1's getting a lot of light, just not in SSA, just in the more general sense. Johnny Boy is running his salt mine. They're even including it in RLCS now, 1v1. So that's getting a lot of light. And as you said, players find a fast avenue to improve within one. So that getting more attention would hopefully inspire a lot more players to start playing ones or start trying to improve. 1v1 shows you very quickly that you're actually very bad at the game. You don't have a teammate to cover for you or two other teammates to cover for you. So it is good, but myself, I have not been as involved in participating.
That's okay.
You know what? I do think Skill still should come check out RSC in season 4. I'm not gonna lie. Should come have a good time there. You'll have fun, I promise.
There is definitely place for you, not even necessarily competing. There's lots of opportunities. But Bahi, coming back to you as we wrap up, so where to from here for you in terms of, I mean, you got Rival Rush, and you've already said there's stuff coming after that, which you are being reluctant to talk about, which is fine. But how do you see yourself, and now I'm putting you back on the spot, how do you see yourself being involved in SSA going forward?
As much as you guys let me. Honestly, I love this doing so far because it's been like I get to only put in the easiest resource, and I get to enjoy all of the great things, which is the perspective from the viewers. I get the nice and lovely DMs liking what I do for the scene. It's amazing. So far, it's been heaven, paradise. So not something I'm shying away from supporting in the future at all. And yeah, the thing is, like, I just thought about it because I feel like the target group of your podcast might not be the ones that I would breach the NDA for. So I could maybe spoil some things for the Rival Rush here because I don't think it will reach them.
All right. Well, you tell us. Whatever you're comfortable with, we will take.
Like in general, I think I was always a bit hesitant when Epic gets involved in a project because I feel like a hot potato sometimes in their hands. That they're like, I'll catch you now and then we'll see how long I can sustain the heat and throw you away again. But they have been nothing but amazing. Like their outreach to us, their commitment to us. Yeah, I thought we were like a one-time wonder, so to say. Like,
yes,
luckily we got involved, but it feels like they have been have other plans with us, a bit of a long-term plan even, and other parties as well.
wow.
Especially the German Soccer Association found quite a big interest in Rocket League now after the FIFA
Wow.
thing happened. So I hope that happens for every country, and
Yes.
we can take advantage of the media outreach that potentially brings them.
That would be spectacular. And well, put in a good word for SSA when you're next chatting to Sarnix.
I mean, I even told you I'll keep rating you with Rival Rush so long until you have the higher viewer count than the European version of RSC.
We've already done that. We've already done that.
Yeah, no, we're definitely challenging them there in that regard. Okay, great. All right, well, Bahi, it's been a pleasure to have you involved, and I thank you for your contribution and your participation. And since it sounds like you're willing, we will definitely be having more conversations as 2025 rolls around. But thank you for taking time and coming to hang with us for a bit.
Yeah, thank you for letting me show my face and having me for the chance to support you guys. You've been doing great so far, so take the majority of the praise for you guys.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, man.
For the rest of your evening, guys.
Cheers, man. All right. Well, there you go. That was Bahi. And moving, we have 2 interviews tonight. The first conversation there we've just had with Bahi. And I got very interested in local orgs, like how do we get local orgs more involved with Rocket League? You know, they've sort of come and gone over the past seasons, but there's a bit of, I'm not entirely clear on the landscape. And our most active orgs are Limitless, Genesix, Cosmico, which are all North American based orgs. So I thought we would start interviewing, and in this podcast over the coming weeks and months, we're going to be getting in touch with local orgs and having a conversation with them. But I mean, I don't know, from your recollection, Skill Still, what was your view of the landscape of local orgs and Rocket League?
I think that's a tough one. For our region specifically, I don't think there's a lot of incentive for orgs to get involved. Because firstly, I think partially players are to blame for that. The expectations are quite high in terms of getting paid and what they want from the org. From personal experience, I know that for a fact. But again, also just the exposure, Greybeard, I know you've been preaching it quite a lot, is players, they're not involved in social media, they're not streaming the games, there's no team streams, there's no effort or concerted effort to get the org's name out there or to get the players' names out there or to show content, create content. And I just think there's no incentive for orgs to get involved if that is the case. And then it begs the question, well, when or where do we start? Where does a local org start to get involved? Do they start enforcing streams from the players? Do they start enforcing social media presence? I know Nixa, myself, Lo, and Archeon, we were part of them. They actually encouraged, they didn't enforce, they encouraged social media presence whenever we're playing a game, whenever there's a result. You know, post on Twitter, add the sponsors, and they encourage that for everything. But I do think where there's a gap is in the content we're creating as players. I see Eliakim trying to do content on YouTube, but then again, you're not doing that for when you're playing competitively, when you're actually doing it live for RLCS or for other off-season tournaments. These players are just not getting involved on a social media presence, and local orgs kind of want that. You know, if I understand it correctly, they want the exposure. You're not just going to take on players and then go hide underneath a rock for the rest of their RLCS careers or for the rest of their careers. You want them to be involved with your brand and what you're trying to build. And right now, there's just nothing of that at all.
And there is a bit of an apocalypse going on in terms of orgs. G2's out of here. Gen G, we nearly lost. They've picked up the FIFA team. But And look, Psionics and Blast, that whole relationship is not helping. There's a little understanding of what Epic and Psionics actually want from org. So we are going through a crazy time, and I think there's a recalibration of expectations from local players. The reality is that Rocket League is not feasible to be an actual paying career. Yeah. I think it's feasible. We just lost Falcon. Where did he go? He just walked off. Okay. I'm sure we'll get him back shortly.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. But you look.
The dog is driving me absolutely insane.
Okay, good. Well, we're all good now. So there is. I think there does have to be a little bit of a balance that arrives, but let's have a conversation now. I've asked a few orgs, and the first who was very keen to come on board and have a conversation is out of Omnius Gaming, and we have the founder, the owner, director of Omnius Gaming coming in, and that is Demonics. Hello, Demonics.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me on. How's it?
And just one quick shout out to Demonics is he helped me put together my website, which I love, but I realize we live in a time who goes to a website anymore. It's a wonderful website. The idea with it was to capture people who are searching for Rocket League in SSA, and it was kind of to try and guide them. Anyway, but he helped put that together. It's a wonderful website and did it at a considerate, all but for free. And in fact, he offered to do it for free, but I insisted we pay something. So Demonics, thanks for that. Now let's kick off with Omnius were involved with Rocket League. I don't know if it was last season or the season before. You had a team, and I know Olympic was on that, and Olympic's an interesting character. He's a bit polarizing, and can make things kind of interesting. Sean is kind of laughing because we all know Olympic, but let's start first and foremost with who and what is Omnius. How did you get going? What are you guys all about?
All right, cool. Yeah, where do we begin? I mean, Omnius kind of formed in 2017, so quite a while back.
Oh, wow.
We kind of started with the big games back then, which was your Overwatch, your Dota when that was still a thing, your Counter-Strike. Those were the big threes we started with. And then as the scene started evolving and branching out into different titles, we kind of adopted them as they came on board and were considered active, So an active scene is like it keeps on going, as tournaments going, people aren't having massive off season stuff like that. So yeah.
And so where are you guys now? What are the titles you're most active in? What are you most active in now?
I would say very active in the sim racing scene. Our drivers are amazing. They're doing quite well. It's really awesome seeing all the top results from them coming through. And we actually do have a bunch of them, as well as like a Nitro Academy for like the lower tier guys to kind of get help from the top guys and move up like that. Then we had Overwatch for the year. Well, it was busy for all the tournaments and stuff. We also had a CS team. It was going strong until the Comic-Con qualifiers, and unfortunately I didn't make it and the whole team disbanded. What else did we have? We did have Siege as well when it was the tournament, but unfortunately it was just a one and done, and we kind of had to let the guys go because we kind of want something that's active and ongoing. Otherwise there's no real point for us. And yeah, that's it for now. I mean, looking at the esports scene, it's a bit of a gamble of what's really still going and what's still chilling. So it's hard to pick and choose what you want to stay invested in.
Well, you heard Skill Steal in the lead up to introducing you and bringing you in about whether it's feasible or not, and the whole and often we're a bit. I don't think we fully comprehend or understand what the org provides and what the players should be doing. And I do think, and keep in mind, the Rocket League pro scene is relatively young. You've got a lot of 15, 16, 17-year-olds who haven't yet discovered how the world works. And it's like, okay, I'm going to play Rocket League and you're going to pay me money. But it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So as an org, you pick up a roster. What for you is the give and take between the org and the roster?
I mean, for us, considering we're not like a big org that's got massive funding, we're quite transparent in like what we're going to offer the players and stuff like that. For us, it's about getting a squad of players that are dedicated or want to be part of the brand, represent the brand, and then we try and kind of help them through that, trying to give them the needs they want. Obviously, not something like a salary, because I mean that gets quite expensive, and South Africa's a bit rough in that regard. But yeah, I mean, it's just having dedicated people that are happy to be part of your brand, that wants to represent it, and then through that, we are like, okay, cool. These guys are like, they want to be with us, and then we try and support them as much as we can with what we have.
And what does that support look like?
Well, it ranges from a bunch of stuff. I've tried to, like, throughout the years, I've tried to make Omnius as a well-oiled machine where things can just run. So you have your things available for players. So making sure everyone's happy, having recent team meetings. If there's a LAN or something, trying to help them with getting the players there, giving them something to represent the org with, be it like merch or your jersey for the year. So like when you're on stage, you can show you're part of the org. Paying for coaching or tournament fees and stuff like that. Anything that kind of just helps them along so they don't have to worry too much about it, and also feel like at least the org is, we know you're there, we acknowledge you, and we want to try and help you go through your esports career as much as we can.
All right, and Sean, Skill, feel free to jump in at any point if you have specific questions that you'd like to ask. But I'd like to my next question is going to be around. We had brief conversation about, okay, what about Rocket League and getting back into Rocket League? Is there a desire, and what does that look like for the future?
Yeah, I mean, so I've also like kind of picked up a few co-owners to help me throughout all the mountains of admin and stuff I need to do. And we had a big discussion about like what titles are we looking forward to for 2025, what is active and what looks like a good thing that's going to keep on going. And Rocket League is definitely one of those titles. I see a lot of noise on Twitter and socials about Rocket League. It's always in my feed, even though I'm not like kind of involved in the scene. It's nice seeing that compared to the other orgs, or sorry, not other orgs, the other titles. So that's a good sign. That means the scene is active, things are happening. People aren't miffed, they're quite excited and they want to do things and looking forward to the next thing. So that is a good checkbox for us to be like, yes, this is a good game that we want to be part of and that we can be part of, and it's not going to just die within the next few months. So that was like the big kicker for us.
Yeah. I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned players will represent the org, for instance. What does that entail exactly, or basically? Like, what would the minimum expectation be for a player to be representing the org? What that you guys would expect?
Yeah, for us, we see ourselves as kind of like how can you put it, like a stepping stone org, right? So our job is to try and highlight the player as much as possible to make him seen through what we can do. And through that, there's a few things you need to do as a player to be seen, which is social media presence. You need to be active on that. You need to be keen on what's happening. You need to share what's happening. Obviously, carry your org's colors with you or whatever's happening like that. So for us, the main things I think on the list is just being active on socials, being part of your scene, making an effort of that, and then if possible, content as well. Because at the end of the day, making content like skill set, like people don't do that. It's kind of like your portfolio, right? As a player, it's
Yeah.
easy to go back and be like, this is my stuff, this is what I've been doing, instead of trying to go searching and finding who's this guy, what is happening. Like if you have like active presence in those like areas, your social and your content, it's very easy for org to review people. So that's kind of like what we try and push players to do, is do those things, and then it's going to be beneficial not only for them but also for us, because then we're also kind of like being pulled along with that, while also trying to uplift the player and making him known throughout the scene a bit better.
I suppose that kind of goes. Sorry, Grabbit. That also kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, if you do perchance get into Rocket League, which you have an interest in, what would, let's say, if there are any players watching, what would make them more attractive to you guys as a team or as an individual player to possibly join?
I would say the best thing is at the moment is just having people that are keen to do those kind of requirements. Like someone that wants to be active on socials, not just he has a Twitter account to shitpost whatever, you know, someone that's like he wants to like let his people know, oh gosh, there's a new tournament happening. Come guys, let's get numbers in. Also someone that's like, cool, like maybe I don't know how to make content, but the org can at least help me because we have the resources, in-house resources to help you. Like this is what kind of works. We can do this for you. You don't have to be a video editor, for example. We'll just do it for you. All those kind of things. So we do have like things to help you along. You must just be willing to want to do that. That's really all. That makes it very attractive for us.
I think there's something very important there because you've mentioned a few. Getting started with content is hard. I fully appreciate that because there's understanding OBS and video and there's a lot that goes into it that can be incredibly frustrating. And you've effectively said you can help with all of that to get that going if there's a desire to do that. And there's something, that sort of help and assistance and guidance and setup is, as a pro, is going to stand you in good stead for years to build up that audience. People like Garrett and Squishy and these others, they have a life beyond directly competing because they've spent all of their competitive careers building that audience. And it is, and I'm appealing now not to the old guard who've been around and who are never going to do it, but to the Ravis, the Devours, T-Shao, Willant, the youngsters who are getting involved now, and I see them making the efforts, and that is such a huge thing. Anyway, I'm just preaching once more, as I so often do. That is such a value add to players.
And I definitely like one of the mottos I had when I started the org, which was kind of cringe, I guess, at the time, was like setting the standard. Yeah. Because I come from a background where like I'm what they call like a unicorn. I have a lot of skill sets, so design, coding, video editing, stuff like that. So working within those fields, not being like proficient in like, well, I guess coding is my best one, but being proficient in those or touching on those points, you kind of see what works, what doesn't work, and then you have like this standard of like, okay, cool, this looks shit. I want to help you make it look better. I can help you make it look better. And then working together with that person to kind of push him upwards with a better standard quality of content or look, how you present yourself on social media and stuff like that. So I always enjoy doing that and just helping people climb. And I know everyone doesn't know how to do that. So having someone that has a bit of a like experience background and just trying to push them, I think kind of goes a long way.
And then in terms of the landscape, and I'm telling you this now just as a further incentive to looking at getting involved with Rocket League, is we've been in a weird place. Rocket League was a niche. Esport is niche, and then Rocket League is niche within that niche, and SSA Rocket League was a niche within that niche within the niche. And honestly, I mean, I was reminiscing about the first LAN I ever went to back in 2019, and Skill Steel was there and a few others, and it was very tiny. It was just a bunch of, it felt like an old school LAN, because everyone showed up with their PCs, like it used to be when you showed up at someone's house and everybody plugged their cuck in, and it was just a fat jaw. It was a step or two above that because there was actually a prize pool. The prize pool was so cut, by the way, that I got paid as a caster, and then I found out what the prize pool was. I was so embarrassed. I was like, just put that in the prize pool. But so that was Rocket League in 2019. Then the pandemic hit, and 2020, and then halfway through 2021, suddenly it's like, wow, you're going to be involved in the Rocket League Championship Series. You're going to get 9 regionals. Here's $20,000 for every one of those 9 regionals. So we went from nothing to this insane prize pool. And now there's been a shift in that, and it's kind of scaled back because of competitions opening. But it became clear to me that there had to be more than just RLCS. There had to be a thriving local competitive scene. And for that, there's VS. And as a criticism to VS, they've been very... the way it was run was a bit sort of awkward, that we didn't know when things were happening, how it was happening, and then suddenly it was a LAN at Comic-Con. So that competition was there, but no one really knew about it. So for next year, VS is going to be huge, and to their credit, VS have been incredibly accommodating in terms of wanting to understand Rocket League and make it better. So there is going to be VS, and then ACGL had a LAN, so there's going to be another ACGL LAN. So throughout the year, we're going to be having the VS competition, which will end at the LAN and Comic Con, where there's going to be the ACGL LAN in July down in Cape Town, probably again, and then there's the community stuff. And then on top of that, RLCS. So there is a full calendar of Rocket League coming up for 2025.
That's exactly what we want to hear, because that means people are always active. There's no downtime. You can make plans to start supporting the players because you have your timeline. If you have a decent team, obviously, you know your chances of making it to one of these lands, so you need to start prepping for that. So that's always exciting to be in that side of it, instead of just like, we have one tournament for the year, maybe not, but having a full range of things that's happening is really good.
Excellent. Well, I think we will look forward to seeing the involvement of Omnius. I mean, RLCS starts in about 5 weeks, so it's going to be. I thought we had time, and Skill Steel, I'm going to ask you this question later, but you can start thinking about it now. I don't know how we solve the roster madness that we just can't seem to avoid it, because it felt like we had like 3 months to prepare for RLCS, but it's going to come down to the last 2 weeks of scramble and orgs and players, once again, which is a lot of fun, but it's not great for long-term building of rosters and the scene, but we'll delve into all of that. But Demonics, I think that's anything you want to say in closing about esports in general, Rocket League in particular, anything. The floor is yours.
I must say, looking at Rocket League, you guys doing things like this, that's a big bonus compared to the other titles. Like, you don't see people really doing podcasts and putting in the effort and keeping people up to date. I feel like having a point where people can just always find what's happening is really good. So keep that up. It's really good, especially if other orgs are getting interested, because we don't like searching, we just want like, this is it, we want to review, and then that's it. So this is really good, and I'm happy seeing this, especially in South African esports, because I feel like we've been quite behind in terms of how things are running, and putting in the effort for this is really good. So thumbs up, keep it going, and I hope I see more stuff on my timeline, definitely.
Well, fabulous. And I hope we see more of you and Omnius in the Rocket League scene. And so conversations will continue. But Demonics, thank you so much for taking the time and being here. And hopefully more. As the season goes, you can come on here and talk about your roster and all the great things you're doing. But we'll see how that rolls out. But in the meantime, thank you so much, mate.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it. And hopefully I do see you guys soon.
Fabulous stuff. Demonics, cheers, man.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
All right. And there we have it. So we've had a chat with Bahi, great SSA supporter, and by the sound of it wants to do more. And then Demonics, and we are going to be, I think the next conversation we're going to be having, and I believe it should be next on the next podcast, will be with the Punishers. So quite keen to have that conversation and see where they are at and what the future for them in Rocket League might look like. But now we get to talk about the FIFA World Cup, the FIFA World Cup. And Skill, I did see a couple of posts by you on Twitter, but your overall thoughts on everything related to FIFA
Firstly, I got to give a huge props to how that entire setup was run, or that entire tournament was run. That was quite amazing to witness. I didn't expect national anthems. I think that is an insanely huge win, to have the national anthems play before the matches start. That is crazy. But the entire just feel of it, the crowd, just the setups, it seems like everyone was quite impressed and happy with how it was run, even the players. But that's just Saudi tourneys in general. Players always come back and say that was amazing. The accommodation, everyone's so friendly, helpful. I think just the entire setup of FIFA was just incredible and amazing. Ran smoothly. The production was insane. I don't know if you saw, but I liked the way that they did the stream. So there was the main stream, but you can also go into every individual match and watch that. It wasn't casted, but you can view the match. I think that was incredible to do. Gives visibility on if your team's not on the main stage or on the main stream, you can just go pop in on there, the B stream or whatever you want to call it, and then watch the match. And everyone got visibility. Everyone was streamed. It was insane. It was crazy. It set the level of expectations from Psionics Epic for RLCS. I saw a lot of people posting, myself included, looking at this kind of setup and this kind of production. You kind of wish they took a few pointers for RLCS, because RLCS feels kind of washed out or just outdated. It's the same thing every season with this small adjustment to the overlay, and that's it. So that was very, very refreshing to see from them.
And then Sean, your overall thoughts. I don't know how much of it you got to watch. I know you were away, but did you catch any of it?
Well, yeah, as you said, I was away, and internet was pretty cuck over there.
Okay.
From where I was staying, but I did manage to catch some of it, and I was actually really impressed. Like Skill still said, the production was fantastic. It looked really cool. Didn't get to catch the anthems though. That's to find out about that. That's actually insane that they added that whole thing. But you know, those guys over there, they seem to always try up their game every single time they do their productions for whichever competition, which I really appreciate, because then it always sets a standard, and then the other people have to catch up. But I did get to catch the SA Australia series, the first one. Which we had a draw in, which was pretty, I suppose, because I don't know. I'm not going to give my actual opinion on it, because then people will start hating me. But
we're going to talk about that in a moment. But carry on.
But in regards to the tournament, it was actually really well done. I was quite impressed from what I did get to see.
And let's talk about the format. I mean, there was lots of discussion about the format, and I was very unsure about it to begin with. But as I was watching it, like Skill, watching all the matches going on at the same time, I love the fact that the format included possible draws. I think that there's a certain, it added such a different, unique element to the whole thing. I loved the format. I don't know what your thoughts were on it overall.
I thought it was refreshing. You know, we've had round robins, we have double elimination, we have Swiss stage every single time, and this was quite great. I was skeptical at first to know that the teams can draw. What's the point? You know, kind of want to win it every time. But then as it went on and teams started accumulating points, and you saw in the bigger picture that if you draw, you're kind of setting yourself back or even losing. But for most of these big teams, Saudi Arabia, they were one of the teams that started out very, very slow. They drew almost every single match at the start. And that kind of put their top 4 position in danger, because now they had to pull out some wins. And knowing that you have 2 games to prove yourself, or 2 games to get as many points as you can, that's kind of, and a possibility of a draw. It's not a best of 3. You just have 2 games, that's it. And a lot of these teams suffered from that. You saw USA in Group B. People thought they were just about going to scrape through a top 4, and then in the very last round, between them and Chile, whoever won that was going through. And I think even if they drew, I think Chile was going to go through. So the stakes on this format, as you go along further into the rounds, was amazing. It was great to watch.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Goose, who's arrived in chat. Hello, Goose. And then also to Eagle. Eagle's here from Reunion. And Eagle, Willu, and Tishao played in a LAN in Reunion yesterday, and they played together and they won it. So shout out to them, LAN champions in Reunion. Like you, Skill, I was a little skeptical. And then also there was a conversation on Twitter about, is this the best format for to allow the best teams to go through. And I thought that was a weird comment, because surely the best team are the ones that adapt to whatever the format is for a tournament. They adapt to it and push through and come out on top. That was my thinking on it. Is you can't. That was my thought.
I mean, there is no best format. I think there's a best format for content. There's a best format for crowds. There's times and places for any format. And you saw even with this format, like I mentioned, Saudi Arabia started out very slow, and they ended up winning it all. So you can't say that a certain format is the best or anything like that. It's just whoever shows up on the day in any format will probably win. If you're feeling it on the day, then you'll prevail. I mean, Netherlands is a great example, even though they have the Joreus curse. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's every time he makes the top 8 round, he falls short. Yeah. Even though they are crashing it the day before, as they did, Netherlands, they ran through everyone, even the big names. And it wasn't the format's fault. It's just literally they were playing out of their minds. They were just showing up on the day. And on any format, Swiss double elimination, if you're playing well on the day, you'll beat the format, if you want to put it that way.
I have no doubt, Sean, that if we did that, those 16 teams, if there was the standard Swiss into single elimination, the result probably would have been different.
Yeah, well, I think this format, because it was a bit different for everybody involved, it kind of threw a spanner in the works and maybe gave them a bit more stress than they used to. They weren't comfortable with the format at all. There was a bit more at stake, I suppose. They felt like they needed to perform a bit better than they usually do. There isn't that safety net that they thought that they're used to having in other formats. For instance, I mean, like Skill still said, there's different types of formats. You get ones that favor your stronger teams. You get ones that favor your weaker teams, in a sense. Mm-hmm. So I really like the format that happened. I don't know if best of 2 would be cool. I mean, it was a bit more high stakes, a bit more nail biting, I would say. But like we're used to it with RSC, with the best of 4 format happening all the time.
Yeah, when it started, I was saying to Bromeo, it should have been like the RSC, and it's like a series of 4 rather than 2. But I think I don't know. I think there's debate around it, and now I'm not as sure of as I was to begin with. Overall, I hope, as I understand it, that this will be an annual tournament. There will be an annual FIFA E World Cup. And now that this one felt a little bit scrambled together, notwithstanding the outstanding production of the event itself, which was amazing, all of the lead up was very scuffed. And we saw that around the world, a lot of confusion. How do you get in? How they selected? The South African Football Association didn't seem overly involved. But if this is a set annual tournament, man, we can have a whole year of content and lead up to it and just hype, so that by the time it comes to it, it should have a similar level of hype as like the Soccer World Cup does, where everyone's like, whoa, South Africa's going to the World Cup. I mean, nobody outside of hardcore Rocket League fans knew this thing was happening. I mean, the country should have been like, wow, South Africa's playing in a World Cup. So I just hope that happens in the future. That does bring us to the converse. It's going to lead us into the next segment, which is how do we close the skill gap? Because the very best of South African Rocket League is still the very worst in the world. And it's a problem we're going to have to address in skill. I know you posted a tweet. They took a game off England to draw them and to deny them a spot in the top 4. I mean, that was a shock. England should absolutely have gone forward, but they were knocked out, and that speaks to the format that we just spoke about. Mm-hmm. But in your mind, was this a better LAN performance?
It's tough to say, because the format, it didn't really inspire consistency. It's a best of 2. You play 2 games and that's it. There's no way for you to prove later in the series, like a best of 7 or even best of 5. Like, listen, it was just nerves. We back into it. But I will say, so even I think it was one of the majors, or was it Worlds, where Snowy, Footy, and Denifall, they played the teams quite close. I think the very first series against G2, they were like
G2.
1 goal differences.
Yeah.
And they took a game off KCP, the OCE team. They were quite good as well, consistent throughout the regular season. So it was kind of leading up to us taking a game here and there, as some of them have showed now. They took a game off OCE again in the FIFA E, and then managed to scam a win against England. But all credit to them, a win is a win, no matter how bad the other team played. If you're gonna outplay them and play more consistent, props to you. Take a game. No one should knock you for that. A win is a win, like I said. Closing the skill gap, that's a very difficult one, because I think it depends on who you're, putting the light on. If you're putting a light on a Silver, there's literally no way to close the gap unless he puts the time in. Similar up until Champion, Grand Champ. Like, these guys aren't at a level where the only thing they have to work on is better rotations, or better mental, or just the more basic stuff. Touching the ball, dribbling, air dribble, flip reset, whichever is the meta these days, that you have to work on your own time. There's no ways an EU team or an import team or even the best of SSA will improve you just by playing them. You have to put the time in. And then once you reach a certain level, then better rotations, better comms, those things start making a difference. And that's what the best teams in SSA would benefit from. Imports or EU teams or NA teams is finding ways to improve your rotation, finding more consistent comms, better positioning. Once you get Rocket League out of the way, then those things is what makes the difference in improving.
All right. Well, that's, I think, very valuable what you've just said. And I do know, well, I'm fairly certain that, God, I completely lost my point. It's going to come back to it's going to come back to me in a moment. There's no one single solution, and we're going to raise the import issue again, as we do every week, because it's the big topic. But it's not a question of will the imports themselves help us or not. What I want us to try and find is, how do we as a region start picking ourselves up by our bootstraps? If we look at OCE, it feels like they were more RLCS competitive 4 or 5 years ago than they are now. I mean, they are a very, very isolated region. They're not a region you can play from Europe or North America and like SSA can. And they've struggled to reach the level of North America and Europe. And I don't know what these answers are, but I feel like we have to do a multitude of things, but we're always going to be dunked on until our current ceiling becomes the floor almost. Like, if you're as good as Limitless, well, you're in the mid-range of SSA Rocket League. How do we get there? And I'm throwing it out to chat, to Skillsteel, to Falcon, anybody. What are the things we look at? How do we address this over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to also be realistic about it. Like I said, we're doing a lot of off-season involvement. RSCs there, the schools, the high school leagues, those are getting a lot of attention. That's all avenues for these players to improve individually, find teams that they're comfortable with. But again, there's no surefire way, or there's no set way for us within the next 3 to 5 years to say, yes, then we'll start taking series from these big teams or these big names. Like I said, we can scam a game here and there, we can win a game here and there, but for us, our region still has, I mean, it feels like we are improving. I heard comments or opinions, Bromeo also included, saying that they noticed improvement from just this last season with imports just coming in. I think that's shrouded in natural progression or natural improvement almost. I was also in that season. You really don't get a lot of exposure against these big names or these strong teams coming in, and that doesn't really improve you enough to make a difference. If you keep playing them for the next 3 to 5 years very consistently, like almost every day, like you scrim these SSA teams, if you play them at that level of consistency, sure, then we'll start being competitive. But OC has had a very, very long time in the scene. We are still very young in the scene. I think we're expecting already to be taking series and taking names. I think that's a bit unrealistic, but OC has been in here for a very, very long time. And they've been doing great. I think KCP at one stage swept BDS in a series. Torsos and their team, they've been taking very, very consistent series against these big names. And I think for us, it's a game of patience. Like I said, our region still has to just catch up individually. The players just have to take in the effort and put in the time to improve. And then once we have more than one limitless in the region, then we can start looking at, taking out teams and things like that.
I think that's an incredibly valid point. So in my mind, there's two immediate goals. And the first you've just highlighted, skill steal. One, local teams have to be able to beat Limitless. It's like this is in our own yard, same ping, same whatever, same nationality, beat Limitless. And then secondly, we've got it as a first target. We're complaining about the imports. We should be able to beat EU teams on 180 ping. That's got to be our next goal, is that, start reducing the imports because they struggle to be. It's just not worth the pain of playing on 180 ping because we're good enough that they're not guaranteed. We can't just be farmed. And those are maybe two short to medium term goals to shoot for.
Yeah, 100%.
Sean?
No, I was just listening to Skill Steal. He actually has a lot of good points.
That's why we bring him on, yeah.
It changed my outlook a little bit, I suppose. It kind of made me less angry at the fact that we're getting dumpstered the whole time, I suppose. So thank you. Although, at the end of the day, there's still there's a skill gap between the top two downwards in our region, and then there's Limitless, and then there's a skill gap between Limitless and the rest of the world. But we still have to figure out a way to somehow how do we help our local teams so that we have more than one Limitless, like Skill Steal says, so that those teams can now be putting the current Limitless through their paces. So that they'll all eventually just help each other improve over time, including if imports come, then we just invite them. Sure, come, we'll start farming you. It's no problem. And then, like Skill Steal says, it's a long-term game until we start actually showing more improvement when it comes into facing off against the international scene on these international lands. I was quite upset because I even ranted to you that day when I saw that whole series between South Africa and Australia. I was quite happy with them taking a draw against Australia in the first series, and then the second series they get absolutely wiped out by Australia, which I wasn't expecting them to go in and just start stomping every single team they saw or keeping it close. They did keep it close against some of the teams there, but to see them get completely curb stomped by some of the teams is insane. It's like they look like they haven't picked up a controller in their life sometimes. And we have two players on that Limitless roster that have got already 3 years of international LAN experience, essentially. So they have faced against the best of the best. Now, what are these players taking away from this international experience they're now getting? And what are they doing with it to help Limitless improve so that they can now be the forefront of our region, essentially? Because they're the faces of our region in terms of the competitive play, I suppose. And if they're getting demolished, then obviously we're going to look like the joke in a sense. When we have a lot to prove as a region, anyways. Sorry, I know I'm rambling a bit.
No, it's all good.
No. It's all good. It's a discussion, so that's why.
But I really do want imports to come, because it goes back to that old like thought of when you were playing Learning as a Diamond, where you go up against your GC friends because it helps you improve at a rapid pace. Because you get exposed to this high level of play. Maybe these imports coming in, if they are better than Limitless, does it have the same effect? Maybe. Did Limitless maybe get a little bit of a fire lit under their arse when Mobula came this side? You know what I mean? Did it push them a little harder than they have been pushing before? To improve, so that they can get this Team Mobula team out, because they're coming here and shit talking and all this kind of crap. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it raises. We've spoken of two medium goals: is one, local teams being able to actually challenge Limitless, and two, not being stomped by teams on 180 ping. Then the next goal is people who actually come out here, and I would have a lot more respect for people who make the effort to come out, because then they're kind of forced to integrate into the community, because they're here, and it would make sense for them to scrim locally, play locally, be involved. And then that would be the next goal, is to discourage people making the effort to fly out here, because it's not as guaranteed as they might be selling an org or some sponsor on. But with that in mind, Skill Steel, I'm fully behind you in the patience thing. It's unrealistic for us to go, okay, great, we're going to be top 8 at a major or at Worlds by 2027. But would you be brave enough to venture an estimate of how long it would take us to the point where, okay, we can actually challenge for a top 8?
A top 8. Oh my goodness. I can't put a specific time frame on it, but it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a very long time.
Are you talking long time in terms of weeks, months?
I'll probably be fully retired by the time we get a top 8. Like fully retired.
Yeah.
That's a very difficult one, because you have to put it in a broader perspective and see who we're trying to get top 8 against. These are players that are levels above.
Yes.
Above us. I don't know if you saw the Saudi Arabia versus France final.
No, it's madness.
That game looked like it was fast forward.
Yeah.
It's like how are they at every single millisecond or minuscule step, they're always ready. And for us to compete against that, we are a lot of steps behind. And it's a very slow pace. While they're sprinting, we're probably crawling right now. And it comes back to just being patient. I think the expectations of the region is quite unrealistic. I think the players also have that unrealistic expectations. If I can put it very bluntly, I think the region needs a reality check. Is that we are not in a place to compete at all with the rest of. We can compete with APAC. We can scam a game off OCE. We're doing better against those two regions, but the rest are just way too far ahead.
We can get lucky
Exactly. And just to bring it back to the topic of the imports, is what I wanted to add to that is, if these teams aren't willing to integrate into the community or to help us improve, there's really no point in us saying, oh, they do improve us, they make us better, when they're only playing the regional. They're scrimming Limitless, I think, once a week or even once in a while. The rest of the teams are not, and then they're just playing the regional. That's helping us absolutely zero. So these teams coming over, they really, the rules aren't going to change. It is whatever. We can ramble on and rant on about how nonsense it is, and I can say how many times it's so nonsense and competitive integrity, this and that. But the real thing that has to change is these teams have to come over and just do everything. They have to scrum teams very actively, any team. They have to stay in the community. They have to be active in the community, do whatever they can. That'll help things. I don't think they'll be fully accepted. It will definitely help things. And with that, we'll probably have 1, 2, or 3 Limitless in the region. We won't like it. I'm not saying we will like it or accept it, but I'm just trying to be productive here and say that is the first step in helping the region, is these imports, providing another Limitless.
Well, I think I can comfortably say that my view on the whole topic has evolved markedly over the last year, and I agree with you, Skill. The rule is the rule, and whining about the rule is not going to get us anywhere further. So there are two options. One, you go, well, fuck it, I'm done, and I don't want to be involved in this because it's all a scam. And absolutely, that's a legitimate choice for people to make. Or it's like, okay, how do we do the best we can within that rule thing? I think there's lots of other advantage that has come. I think what happened last year with those kids who came out, who got banned, and SSA got so much exposure. A massive light was shone on the region, and I think that's been good for us. People like Bahi, who we spoke to earlier, they've come into the region and gone, "Hey, I want to be part of helping this thing. How can I help?" If we look at the external orgs like, well, Genesix and Cosmico, why would they have bothered with SSA if not for the fact that we had become people became aware of us. SSA filtered into the consciousness of the world, and I think that's good for us, and it'll be good for us long term. But the bottom line being, it is what it is. How do we improve given the current state of things? And we either choose not to participate, or if we go, okay, I want to participate, do the best I can given the obstacles that exist. Someone made a comment, I think it was Baby Meon in chat, and it's a very real point, is our player base needs to grow. It's going to be very hard to have enough people at the top level if we haven't got an army, hundreds and thousands of people coming into the game at the bottom over the long term. And I think that's where VS is going to be incredibly important next year for the high schools, ACGL in the high schools. If we can, I think there were something like 140 schools that participated in Rocket League last year. But we got to get that number up to 500, 1,000, 2,000. It's got to be huge, because then I think we will get enough people filtering in. Out of every 100, let's call it every 500 people, there's that one guy that can be snowy or to die for, or that's where it's going to bite and they are going to grind because they want to be the best that the region has to offer. So that's at the bottom end, I think, something that's really important.
I mean,
sorry. Go first. No, go first.
There is also, if you think about it, 'cause I'm a low rank player, right? So I see all the other people that are around, and there's a lot of players out there, a lot of names I've never seen before that I don't think they have even any idea that there's a competitive environment in Rocket League in South Africa at all.
Correct.
So there's probably, we don't even know how many players there are that aren't even aware of what's going on in South Africa in terms of Rocket League. And you might get the some that just don't want to take part in it at all, which is fine. But there could be kids out there that want to, maybe I want to go pro in this game. How do I do that? And they have no idea where to start.
And it would be so easy for Sonics to fix that. Somebody posted, I don't know if it's CS or whatever, but imagine you opened up Rocket League and there was a tab which told you every community event that was going on, that you could go, if you want to watch competitive Rocket League, you can go to this channel, that channel. And that is absolutely a problem. And for ages I had my website as my in-game name in the hope that somebody would go and look at the website and then go, there's and it is crazy. But I agree with you 100%. And hopefully through schools we can reach them that way. But Sonics could help. Skillsteel, you were going to say something.
Yes. So I was going to make a point on growing the player base. So that is also something that we also have to be very careful of. So we obviously have these school leagues, these young players coming up. VS is not exposed, to my knowledge, to anything outside Sub-Saharan Africa. Same with ACGL, I also think. So the only thing opened up to imports and EUs, these strong teams, is RLCS. Yes. Now you bring up all these school players through VS, through ACGL. They're beating, what they consider on their level as good teams, getting into RLCS, getting pub stomped. Very, very, that's where they then decide, okay, I thought I was okay, now I'm not. I don't know if I want to go on with this or not, and then they step away. I've actually spoken to players, I'm not going to name names obviously, that have said if the rule doesn't change, they're going to step away. And if that's a mentality that we aren't nurturing or maturing throughout VS, ACGL, the rest of the scene, then we're going to see the player numbers either stay like this or they're going to plummet, because players are like, why do I keep going on with this if I'm just going to get pub stomped every Saturday or every Friday? Like, what's the, so it's a catch-22 almost. It's
yeah.
Well, what that tells me, Skill, is that, okay, so there's high school leagues and then there's RLCS, right? And there's a huge, we got to build out that middle as well. And that's where something like Six-Mans has to start becoming a lot better, a lot more geared toward improving the community, because that's where you want to filter them in, is that they get into Six-Mans, they rise through the ranks there, because then they're going to start eventually encountering the sort of level that they should be at. So I agree with you. You can't, pull someone out of, oh, you did well in high school, go play here and you lose 22-0. That's incredibly demotivating. There has to be a pathway that leads from one to the other. And we are hamstrung in many ways because we are such a small region. I mean, pretty much everybody knows everybody, which in one way is pretty cool. It's nice, but in another way, it's horrible because, well, as they say, familiarity breeds contempt. And for such a small region that desperately needs each other to grow, we can be incredibly toxic with each other, which blows my mind. But the more we build infrastructure that can help with that, the less that becomes a major issue. It almost feels like, the top players are fighting for, you got 27 people all fighting for the last piece of cake. So it's all a scramble and everyone's punching everybody, and that's crazy. But your point is valid, but it does tell me that, yes, bring in thousands through the bottom, but then we need somewhere for them to go and some way for them to develop and improve their skills.
Exactly. And I mean, just to shortly add to that again, it enforces the point of they need to put in the time. Like, we're not asking, focus on school, just focus on the important things, right? The Rocket League in our region isn't something you can just say, I'm going to go full time. It's not viable. Definitely not viable. I'm not encouraging anyone in SSA to say I'm going full time. But to put in the required effort to improve and to make something of it. And the rest of the region, if we grow the middle pack or even grow the bottom pack, the region naturally grows with that. Because these players, as they individually improve, teams improve, the rest of the players around you start improving if they also put in the time. And that's how the region naturally grows.
There's also a massive mental side to it.
Exactly. Yes.
Legendary Thick has sent me a long message, and I just want to ask him on in chat if he's can I read this message on stream? Are you okay with that, Legendary? Let me know if that's okay. The plus side, he says yes. Oh, that's good. My chat's broken. I just realized my chat's like, I'm not even seeing chat. That is crazy. Okay. So it's fairly long. And this is what he says. He says, from coaching SSA for 1 year and Bubble Pro in North America, the biggest difference between the players is the ego and confidence are completely different. Most players I have coached in SSA have a misplaced ego and have an excuse for everything. I won't name the players, but here is an example. I told this player to start queuing rank 2s in EU so he can improve. He replied with, I don't need to play 2s. I'm top 6 in SSA 2s. Which I replied, congrats, you are top 15,000 in the world. Are you proud of that? He then replies, but the ping, oh my God, just adding another excuse. When coaching owned esport, the very first problem the team had was the players being annoyed of all these SSL EU players coming to our region. I told them to stop crying and be thankful that they are making you better. And if you talk like that, if you talk like they are better than you, you will never be better than them. So I told them, let's call ourselves the EU Killers, and manifested. And we got top 8, and we did beat a few SSL teams that made top 4. NA players that I coached already have that ego and confidence, and they play the game around 110 hours a week compared to SSA players playing around 70, or even just playing scrims only, averaging 40 hours. NA players play around 1.5 to 3K games a season compared to SSA averaging 200. So, and there's a few elements to that skill. You just said there is no way SSA players can be full-time, and I agree with that. It's not viable. And if you're at school, it makes it even harder. But is he wrong with what he's overall said there?
Yeah, I agree with most of it. Like I said, the region does need a reality check. Top 6 SSA 2s means absolutely nothing when you play EU and you start dropping 200 MMR immediately. I think players, I mean, the ranked servers have popped off recently, but that's just partly due to people preferring to play low ping. I myself have been queuing it way more than I've been queuing EU.
Yes.
You saw I did post a tweet when I got like 1900 on SSA. I made the fair question, where do we rank what we get on SSA with the rest of the region? And the most of it was around 1600. So I think these players are generating a very false narrative that if they get 1900 on SSA servers, they're automatically the best in the world. But they're generating that narrative without even reaching SSL on SSA. That's why I say these players need a reality check saying, listen, dude, you're not even close to top anything.
Yeah.
And that's where they stop grinding. That's where they say, okay, I'm good enough. You know, why I'm the best there is, so why do I need to grind?
Gets SSL and SA, but has the consistency of a GC1 and EU.
Exactly, can flip reset, but can't hit an open net consistently. It plagues us all. But the point being is these players start thinking they're so insane, they start playing as much as they should because there's no point for them. They're like, I don't need to improve, I'm already pretty good. And they start falling off, or they just start hitting this plateau. And if we don't start thinking like, listen, we need to improve, we can always improve, I need to be the best, I'm not the best, but I want to be the best, that kind of mentality, it can go a long way. I think people underestimate how far a mental game can take you.
Yeah.
You can think you're the worst player ever, but to have the mentality of I'm getting better every day and I want to be where, you know, top 1, I want to be number 1, that does wonders. It does a lot.
Well, this I thought this was going to be a quick topic, and I feel like there's a lot more conversation to be had around it, and it is something I would like to talk about some more as this podcast rolls out, because this comes to the very heart of are we going to reach a point of being globally competitive? And I do believe it is possible, but I completely agree with you. I mean, I initially thought maybe 2029 we could have a fairly decent run at a major. And actually have some SSA players at the major, which is our first mission, and what we're going to struggle with. But I also do think the more import players there will be natural integration. And I completely agree that the bulk of them are incredibly mercenary. They want to come. They're here for their own self-interest. I get that. And people will do what's in their self-interest. And if it's within the rules, that's the way it is. But as they come here, as the more of them there are, local players, if they're smart, will start to connect up, will start to network, will make some friends. And then we see the natural progression of a 2/3 rule or a 1/3 rule, where it'll just be organic because they want to play together. They've got good chemistry. They can actually compete together. And that is a good thing. So 2029, maybe we're competitive at a LAN, but in the meantime, we have to build up the scene. We need a lot more people playing, and we need to build in that transition from one to the other, where someone who's good at a school league can get into a 6-man's or something competitive that gives them a bar to reach, and they can take it in stages to be at the point like, okay, now we can now we can do something. It looks like my chat is finally working again, which is great because I've missed all the conversation. I did see, I think it was Goose that said the reason the region is chalked is because I got Grand Champ. The region was so cuck that I could become a Grand Champ. And maybe that was true, but it's not true anymore. I can't anymore. So that'll all be good. So I think we're going to leave it there because we've already been rolling for an hour and a half. And the other topics that I thought we would spend some time with, but we're just going to roll through very quickly, is a reminder that, oh gosh, I was supposed to announce this. Registrations for hoops have closed. And I'm just going to tell everybody what the final team count was. It looks like it was 46 teams are going to be competing in the 2v2 off-season hoops, which is going to be Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Probably Sunday and Monday. Yes, 46 teams. I don't think 46 is enough to have Saturday and Sunday. It'll probably all be Sunday and Monday, I think. Maybe a first round on Saturday, but I'll be streaming as much of that as I can. If you're playing in that tournament, please POV stream. There's no official broadcast. There's no team streams. Stream your POV so I can watch party and we can keep track of what's happening in that tournament. I'd love to see that. And then, of course, the off-season 3v3. And as it stands right now, there are... how many teams? There were only 20 earlier. Registration for that closes next Monday, so I'm sure there's going to be a last-minute scramble. It's up to 21, so that'll be just before Christmas. I think it's the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. So keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, RLCS 2025 starts for SSA on the 10th of January. That's when sign-ups are open right now. But the open qualifiers start on the 10th. Main event will be on the 17th and 18th of January. And I think that's pretty much it. Yes, it is. That's going to wrap it up for what's coming. And we were going to spend time on who signed up, the rosters and all of that. But my goodness, skill still. If you could keep a little bit of an opening in your diary for Mondays, because I definitely want to have you back. I think there's lots more we're going to talk about as the season rolls out. But that has been that. Skill still, genuinely, though, it has been a real joy to have you here and having you sharing your insights. So thank you for taking time out to be with us tonight.
No, thank you very much. I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it very much. I think it was very productive. A lot of, we rambled on quite a lot, but that is a podcast, that's a discussion, talking about a lot of things. So no, I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Brilliant. And a lot coming up. It's a very, very busy time. And I feel like I have to emphasize the point. Despite everything that's going on in skill, I need you to back me up here. If we think about what Rocket League was like back in 2019, there's never been a better time to be playing Rocket League. Yes, it's not viable to be a full-time Rocket League player. Yes, it's, we got imports. Yes, we got all these problems. But man, oh man, there've never been this many opportunities in Rocket League.
Exactly. There's so much to do, so much to play for, so much avenues to improve or find a team or just get introduced to the competitive scene. I think this is a very good step in the right direction.
All right, Sean, your closing thoughts.
I do think we opened a very big can of worms that still hasn't been closed yet. Other than that, I do think we had a great discussion on that topic. I know it hasn't ended yet at all. We'll probably carry on for the next couple of hours. But
there's plenty more to carry on. There's plenty more to talk about, but we will talk about it on future episodes of Just Saying. From me, Greybeard, Skill Steel, and S. Falcon. Peace!